There's not going to be a tornado. It's just a thunderstorm. Everything's going to be okay. Why weren't you answering my calls?
Look, I'm sorry. I think it's an EF5.
What the hell's an EF5?
It's like when two tornadoes come together and they form one giant tornado.
Mom, I think something might be wrong.
It won't open. A tree is blocking the door.
Can't we just break the door down?
That thing is made of solid oak. I can't just punch through it.
Doesn't make any sense.
What doesn't make any sense?
We have neighbors. Someone would have come. They're all dead.
Why would you say that? What if it wasn't just a storm?
Let me out of here! Need help!
What did you see out there?
Not a tornado. Something else.
I was scared.
Scared of what?
Of you.
We did something bad.
Pat Healy. I just had your brother on recently, actually. If I can say.
Did you? What are you talking to Jim about?
Well, Wisconsin film. I tried to, especially during. I've always sort of, enjoyed going to obviously festivals, and that's where I was introduced to you, actually. So I've always tried to, talk to people from various festivals and highlight the ones I think are doing a great job. So I've been meaning.
Good,
yeah,
they do a great job there.
I agree, and I've been meaning to do it for a long time, bring them on, and finally brought Michael and Jim on, and so it was obviously not that long ago.
You're in New York, right?
Yeah, well, I've been in New York City, and now I'm a little north of the city,
right?
Which is what a lot of like-minded New Yorkers have done.
Yeah, no, most people I know my age have done that or moved.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think COVID sort of sped things up a little bit, but
it started to happen with my people around my age, like about 10 years ago. People started to flee the city from Maine and upstate and all that stuff.
Oh wow, yeah.
Nyack,
nice town.
Yeah,
it's actually very pretty.
Louis can tell me who's in this movie.
No, I know. I was in that house.
Yeah. Oh, have you? Yeah.
Yeah,
did you interview him there?
Yeah, because I knew him a little bit because I kind of am nuts. So none of these things are coincidental. I just certain actors, or creative people, they get, and I would see him around, and I saw him in a bunch of films early on, like 10 years ago, and that face and his style. Yeah. I mean, and then I ran into him on a subway, and I said, it's so nice to meet you, and then. I don't know. He gave me his email at the time, I guess. And when he was in that little Scorsese film, The Irish, something or other,
yeah,
that was like a great excuse to invite him on. And so he said, "Well, you can, if you want to do it in person, why don't you come up here?" I mean, we have a little, little one now, so it's they had a few kids, maybe even.
They have 3, yeah.
Yeah. So, but he was so good in that, and.
Yeah, he's great in this too. He's just working with him yesterday. I think he went home for a little bit, but he'll be back.
So we know everybody we know in Nyack, we know in common.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I it's funny. It's the second time I heard about it in a week because my buddy Toby Huss is up there filming that White House Plumbers show, and they had some kind of to do up there where it got shut down.
Is this like the Watergate thing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's Woody Harrelson and Justin Theroux as the Libby, G. Gordon Liddy, and Gordon Hunt. And
Oh,
it's about the plumbers. It's about the guys who broke in. So
I can't wait to see it.
Some big brush up that happened on set.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll definitely get to We Need to Do Something, which directed by Sean King O'Grady, and which opens on the 9th, September
3rd.
I think you're right. I think it's September 3rd.
Labor Day
here
weekend.
It is. September 3rd. Yes, right. But I did want to say, because I was introduced to you with Compliance. I know probably not the only one.
Sorry.
Thank you. Finally, closure. We can move on.
Yeah.
And then, just again, you were somebody, and I came close to bring you on. We were supposed to meet in New York City, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I remember we talked.
Come on, you don't remember
Facebook
that
or something. I do. And I've listened to your show before.
Oh yeah.
Because you've had everybody on, but I remember talking on Facebook or something. You reached out to me, and for whatever reason, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, and that happens. That's not an unusual thing. People, and I hate to be the person that makes somebody stressed out, or because they're trying to squeeze something in. But
no, because you've had friends on. You've had Kevin Corrigan is a good friend of mine, and lots of people I've heard on the show. Yeah.
So I'm just thrilled to have you on finally. That it's worked out.
Thank you. Me too.
And so that. Yeah, so that's it. So actually, and I finally even did a little more due diligence. I finally caught up with Mullet, which I had never seen.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I'm deep diving, right?
Yeah, that's a very deep dive, and in fact, that's a dumpster. I quite literally dumpster dive in that movie.
That's true, and people can see it on Vimeo. I may link it, but we'll talk about your recent work, like the new film, of course. I didn't mean to get too caught up, but it was a lot of fun to see that, because also Bob Byington and Jim, of course, is in it, right? It was so fun to watch.
My brother is in a dual role. He's also the guy in the gorilla costume.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. But you had quite a few nearsighted characters in that film.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it is. I get interested in things like that. The last one was, my feature, Take Me, it was the toupee, and I just get curious about things, and visually it's interesting to me, or funny, or whatever. Yeah. Well, since you've mentioned it, do you have any thoughts about that? Like, where maybe that came from? The glasses, or the
having these props or costume wardrobe, like that creates that you really appreciate, like I don't know. Do you think
I think it comes from a really early age. I mean, a lot of great actors and a lot of acting teachers will say that, you're the best at this job when you're 4 years old, because you're really connected to that world of fantasy and imagination, and you really believe it's real. I mean, you believe this couch over here is a ship, and you're a pirate, and you're fully committed to it. And so there's a lot of things that happen between then and when you're an adult and a professional actor that get in the way of that, and you sort of have to strip away. But the beginnings of performance is trying out, putting on outfits and glasses and hats and things at home. And we certainly had no shortage of that. I have 3 brothers, and my mom and dad, tons of stuff to play with.
Yeah.
And, I think it comes from that. And then there's certain things that's like, maybe you see somebody with really thick glasses somewhere.
Okay.
I guess the difference between then and now, and maybe it begins this way, is that you get a visual idea of something, and then maybe you put that on and you try that out, and then it starts to suggest things about the person to you. And I still do some of that, but I think now it's more like it starts internally. If you read the script and then you get an idea. I remember with Take Me, with the toupee, it was not scripted that way, but I do have issues with hair loss. It's probably my great insecurity about myself, physically speaking. And I was going to wear a hairpiece for the film because I had an idea of what the character's hair looked like. And when I used to have hair, I would always almost begin almost every role with thinking about what the hair would be. And then that would suggest something in the way that the glasses do. And then Taylor Schilling was originally going to be coming right off of her season of Orange is the New Black. So she was going to wear a wig too, because her hair was sort of all fried and burnt from whatever she had on that show. And we were on a call, the two of us were on a call with Mark Duplass, and we were talking about that, just the practical sense is, I think I'm going to wear a wig that's this. And he said, what if you both wore wigs and it's becomes integrated into the plot somehow?
That's what I was
because
gonna say.
It's very much about acting and performance and all those things.
Right.
She ended up doing another movie in between. So her hair looked beautiful and blonde as you see it in the movie.
Good. Yeah.
But I stuck with mine, and I didn't want people to think that I've been obsessed with my whole family's been, my dad used to point out guys with bad toupees all the time, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, it never, it's fascinating that that they think that people think that that's real.
Well, the irony being that it actually draws more attention to you, not
correct
less, and it's not positive attention. Typically.
So I got one that was, purposefully, bad. And we actually had to change the movie a little bit in post because people were confused when the movie starts because they thought that they thought basically that Pat Healy was someone who didn't know that looked bad. So we had put in some like ADR lines and stuff to let people know that, yes, we knew that it looked bad.
Right. That's funny. That's really funny. The character, was it your sister who,
yes.
Well, she points out, please don't bring that. That was
we just put in over
this
scene where I'm driving. We just put in a voicemail in ADR and post, and then it worked. And it got extra laughs too. So
yeah. So it was like,
well, I guess that's where it comes from.
Well,
I always get a visual idea. I mean, because I love movies so much, and I'm such a, I should approach things more internally but as soon as I'm reading that script, I get a visual idea of what that person looks like. And it evolves over time. But yeah, there are things like that are nice little tools. Shoes are a big deal always, the way you walk. Like we have these 1920s beautiful suits in this movie and these great shoes and hats. And you put them on and you're immediately in that world. You don't have to do a whole lot,
Right.
In fact, you have to sort of like pull back and do less.
Anybody puts on a pair of cowboy boots knows automatically you walk differently. Yeah.
And I wear cowboy boots all the time as a person. Like I like to wear them everywhere. Plus they give me a little extra height, which is good.
Well, I appreciate also how you talk about it. Like these are insecurities, but you have drawn attention to them. I didn't expect to be talking about this, but like how that would be a way of combating that by making it into a punchline, almost like
a joke. Yeah. I think I have to convince myself to laugh at it because otherwise it would be sad. I think somebody was talking to me about we need to do something. And in conjunction with Take Me, there's some outbursts of the anger. And it is very real, but it also is funny because I think if it weren't, it would just be depressing or something, So there's an aspect of like, I'm not trying to make it funny. I'm genuinely expressing my anger or my rage, especially my whatever I've been holding inside. But it should be entertaining too. Like I don't want to punish an audience with that. Hopefully it's both, hopefully people are affected by it. Take Me is a good example where I think I expressed real rage, but because of the context of the movie, it is a comedy. It's funny. And I think there are many things about we need to do something that are funny too. I mean, it's certainly in a sort of absurdist film,
Well, and you're never really sure what people are doing, like, or what the character, what if they're being straightforward or if you're being, somehow fooled or,
Yeah, and it's, the movie is an allegory and a metaphor. And, as an actor, you can't play allegory or metaphor, but I was very aware that the sort of construct of it isn't necessarily realism. And I I have read some reviews, just some early ones out of Tribeca that criticized me particularly for overacting or something. I just thought, well, okay, you can't win them all. But to me, I honestly felt like it was one of the best things that I had done, pieces of work that I had done. And when I saw it, I felt that even more. So
I just turned it on before because I hadn't seen it since it came out. And then I was like, why? I think I'm just going to re-familiarize in case it comes up in the course of the conversation, which has, but and then just was, I was with it again for the whole thing. So.
Oh, you're talking about Take Me or?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Also, we need to do something. I've watched all the way through it, of course, but and enjoyed it thoroughly. But you a lot of people may not know that your origins were in, not surprisingly, in the Midwest, but with Steppenwolf, which might explain why Michael Shannon was in that Mullet film as well.
Yeah, right? Mike and I met at Steppenwolf in 1994. I went to school at Illinois State University, which they offered at that time an internship to graduating seniors, and I got the one when I graduated, which is incredible, in 1993 for a year. And I did all kinds of things. Like I worked on the stage crew. I lugged a porta potty up and down the steps of the rehearsal space there. But I was able to audition for all the shows, and I got cast as an understudy. And then I went on as an understudy for Jan Barford. And then I did, I think, 2 of those during my internship year. And then I got cast in a show there as soon as my internship ended. And that got me an agent in Chicago, which got me whatever movies and TV and commercials were in Chicago. And my agency had an office in LA. So as soon as I got out to LA, I really started working right away. There were, as a friend of mine says, unlike you, I was not cursed with early success. Sometimes it was like, I hit it right out of the park early on, and then it became more difficult later, and I had to sort of manage that and figure it out. But yeah, I was really fortunate there. And to speak to the sort of acting style that we're talking about, and the rage and the acting out, that's very much the Chicago style. That's leave it all on the stage, put it all out there, get a hold of that bone and just chew on it until it's in a million pieces. I met John Lithgow here on set the other day, and he was asking me about myself, and I said, I started in Chicago, and he goes, oh, you're the gold standard. Wow.
Wow.
Chicago actors are the best. Okay, well, thank you. I mean, you're pretty good too.
He went home and told his spouse.
Then he saw my acting and he was like, can I take that back?
Stop it. Well, you have such an interesting career path, because I was going to ask you about Steppenwolf and Justin, like I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of wonderful, obviously, they have an incredible number of some of our great actors have come from Steppenwolf, but I was wondering, were they also, was there, I don't want to use the term snobbish, but were they really serious theater, like people in technique, method, or I was wondering if they, if that was part of your background. I didn't know if that. I mean,
where I went to school, we certainly talked about the method, and we talked about Meisner and Stanislavski and
Uta Hagen.
Respect for Acting. Yeah. That was like the textbook. Steppenwolf, I mean, I think it was less about talking about it, more just about getting out there and doing it. Yeah. And they were also in this place because the Grapes of Wrath had been just a few years earlier, where they bought this giant space, which they have now, and they've even built onto that now, and they have a school now and all these things, but they didn't have that at the time. But they were more of an institution at that point.
I see.
But they were still doing, really interesting stuff. They just weren't these scrappy young kids in a garage anymore, because they certainly weren't snobbish about theater, because Gary Sinise was a big movie star at that
John
point.
Malkovich and Gary Sinise.
Malkovich had been, and
Right.
Joan Allen and Mahoney, and Mahoney was on Frasier at that time, and then people like Jeff Perry and Terry Kinney were very much my mentors, who were also, Jeff was on Nash Bridges for years, and Terry had been on many different shows and many movies and things, and directed movies, and then there were people around. The people that were sort of in my group were like Nick Offerman and Mike Shannon, Tracy Letts, Kate Walsh, Paul Edelstein. Yeah, a lot of those people.
Great actors.
Yeah, I don't think anybody comes from sort of one school of thought on approach. I think it's just very much sort of like, just committing to it and really kind of digging in and seeing what happens.
Was it in the period where you said things you moved to, finally when you did get to Los Angeles though, and you said there might have been a little bit of a dry period or a difficult start, just took a while? Did you?
It was a good start. It was cursed with early success. It was a good start, and then it dried up. Yeah, a little. Yeah. So I think I moved out. I moved out in '98. I was in Chicago about 5 years, and then it was around 2002 when things got a little bit more challenging. And you go through this. I still go through those periods. Thankfully, not for a while, but 2 years ago, I was driving Lyft during the summer. And got offered 3 TV shows at the same time and had to turn one down. It was like,
you can only tell the anecdote about driving a Lyft if you get those offers. Otherwise,
exactly. Yeah,
it might be a bit too humiliating. Yeah.
No, I was fine with. I was like, look, I need to do this. I know it won't be forever. I actually didn't mind it very much. I found it to be interesting, and I liked getting up every day at the same time and going to work and not thinking about my problems. And
that's great.
I honestly think kind of making that change in direction probably helped me, take off again, because I wasn't just sitting at home just worrying about what the next job was or my problems were.
That's exactly right. And do you remember that about 3 years ago, I think it was, where that actor from the Cosby Show?
Yeah.
I'm not going, but the younger actor.
He was working at Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's. I think that was a big moment. I think. For just do it's sort of exactly what you just described. It was the guy said almost the same type of thing, where about just that, and also just the practical reasons. I had a family support. I want to.
Why I'm lucky. I don't have that. I guess I'm unlucky that I don't have that in some ways, but I don't have that kind of responsibility. But the truth is that I've made a living at this for 23 years now, but this is the first time in my life I've actually had real money, and it's taken a long time. I've been recurring on a television show that's a network television show for the last 2 seasons, and that's a lot of money. And I'm doing this movie, and just so happens that it's coming at this point in my life. But quite frankly, most people think all actors are well off, and even the working ones will tell you, sometimes there's a long time between jobs.
Sure,
and
right. They can be lucrative, yes, but then it may be another 5 years before you get another.
Yeah, and you don't know that, so you might be on the Cosby Show and buy a house and have 3 children, and
that's a good point.
Right. Then there's nothing. But it turned out to be a great teaching moment, but also I think it helped launch his career again too. It
did. It was nice, a byproduct of that. Yeah.
And I don't think he was humiliated. I think people were trying to humiliate him, and I don't think he was humiliated by it. He was like, yeah, I work at Trader Joe's. I need to make money for my family, and people respected that so much about him that I can't remember his name. I think his name is Jeffrey Owen or something.
I think you're close to it if you're not accurate. That's right.
Yeah.
So the other question I would have, because it's such to me, I don't want to say an honor, but to have you on finally is just, it's such a treat for me, So
well, thank you.
Please do understand if I'm asking you other questions outside of We Need to Do Something, which again opens on September 3rd. Thanks to IFC Midnight.
In theaters and at home.
And streaming and VOD, and it co-stars Vinessa Shaw, Sierra McCormick. Who else is in it?
John James Cronin,
the
said Alexis.
Son.
Yeah.
And right.
All great.
It's a COVID film. We could talk a minute about that. You just tell me when you have to hop, because
I don't know. I mean, is Lee on here? He probably knows better than I do.
Lee, are you in the background somewhere?
Emily today.
Oh, hi, Emily.
Hi, guys. You just have a 1:30, Pat, so you're fine for a couple more minutes.
Okay. Great.
And
keep going, guys.
Okay, great. Well, it feels like you've always just loved, regardless of how this fits into what we've been talking about. I think genre films obviously is like your love, and you constantly, I just wondered how that developed, like coming from your background. It just seems like an unusual transition or pivot,
Well, our whole family has always loved movies, and Jim and I are certainly the maniacs in that department. And he always wanted to, watch them and show them, and I wanted to make them. So we basically have the jobs that we had when we were that we wanted to have when we were 7 and 9 years old. And it was just constant watching whatever was on, and reading in these books, because there wasn't home video at this point, and there wasn't really cable till a little later for us. So there's a lot of the Universal monster movies,
beautiful
comedies,
right.
Mel Brooks, Woody Allen, Saturday Night Live, SCTV. Those were the
touchstones.
Sort of touchstones early on. And then as I became more interested in being a professional actor, I saw like the movie The Pope of Greenwich Village with Mickey Rourke, and I thought, I hadn't seen a lot of Brando or De Niro, if at all, a little bit. And I thought, well, that's what I wanted to be. That, sort of like, so he was sort of a gateway drug for me in terms of that. But I just have always loved all kinds of movies. I mean, quite frankly, outside of those Universal horror movies and like things like The Blob, which terrified me as a kid, it wasn't until I really couldn't take horror. I got really scared of horror movies around the time we moved when I was 10 to New Jersey for a few years, and it was like kind of a rough emotional time. So that period, I really was like, movies like Poltergeist and John Carpenter's The Thing really freaked me out, and I didn't want to see them, and I was very squeamish about the gore. And then I think somewhere around the mid to late 80s, I remember Evil Dead 2 was a big movie that played at the theater that I worked in, and everyone's like, you got to come in here and see this. And it's, this demon getting its head squashed and the eyeball flying across the room and landing in a woman's mouth. And I was like, yeah. And I was like completely on board with that kind of stuff. But, I love all kinds of people say, like, what kinds of movies do you like? It's good ones,
right.
From any era, from any country. I think horror, isn't necessarily my favorite genre. And quite frankly, I think a lot of the horror movies are, stinky, but that's because there's so many of them. They're the easiest one to make and get finance and stuff. So, but I think because of, I suppose, The Innkeepers, which was just something I really wanted to do because I liked Ty's movies so much and I wanted to work with him. And I hadn't been acting for years because I was making money writing, and I was tired of
you wrote
auditioning.
Actually,
yeah. So I was really burnt out on auditioning and get rejection and stuff. So I actually kind of stopped for auditioning, at least for a few years there, like between like 2007 and 2010. And then Ty asked me to do that movie. And then that sort of led to Cheap Thrills, which I never thought of as a horror movie, but was sort of classified and sold that way.
Genre.
And then some other things I did, some for money, but I always put 100% of my energy into whatever it is I do. And in this movie, I just thought was a great script and a great character and something I hadn't done before. And I was interested in the allegory, like you say, to COVID, which is, we were shooting in September and October of last year, and the election hadn't happened and there was no vaccine yet. So it really was this period of, I could always say things are going to be okay, but I remember Vinessa and I having that conversation saying, like, really don't know if things will be okay. And I was interested in the alcoholism and the withdrawal from the alcoholism and the shifting family dynamics, but also just that I like a horror that just comes out of an everyday life situation. And this movie takes some really kind of crazy, surreal turns and things. I like that too. But it just, I don't know, it appealed to me, and it was a job in the middle of a pandemic, and it was one that I didn't have to push too hard to find to find that character. I mean, I was feeling it. That's maybe an outsized, exaggerated version of what I was feeling, but yeah, it's always good when something comes at the right time and you're there and you can just kind of step into it.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. And
sure.
I'm going to urge people to see We Need to Do Something. Again, it opens September 3rd and stars among its great cast, the great Pat Healy, and it's going to be fun to watch.
It is fun. It is really whacked out.
And there is right. And you have a great scene with the snake, which we'll just leave it at
and
that.
I'd say, like, if you like Lucio Fulci and those Italian 70s Italian horror movies, that's and true. Like David Cronenberg, it's kind of like those two things went into the Brundlefly's machine and fused together. That's what I like. And I like both of those kinds of movies a lot. So, but it's a fun movie and crazy. Bananas, as I like to say. Well, I want to come back sometime so we can talk some more. Maybe we can do this for longer.
Me too. I love that. And I would totally enjoy that. So it won't hopefully be that long, because you're working on, it seems like you're doing a lot of work, but you can always just do this in a general way anyway, because
sure,
it's fun.
No, I got some stuff coming up that'll be interesting. Some things I can't even talk about yet, but
okay,
certainly be plenty to talk about in the near future.
Excellent, great. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
It was
good
fine.
To see you.
Finally can cross it off my bucket list here.
You and me both.
And I had both Healy brothers on at the same year.
Yes, major triumph.
Thanks.